New clues into why a Green Beret set off a homemade bomb outside of Trump Tower.
Well, folks, despite Trump's claims that these recent attacks in Las Vegas and New Orleans are from immigrants who come across the border, the truth has been revealed.
There were a couple pieces of content we thought were important to share for now. One is in the note application. He seemed to have 2 letters. This was not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives? Why did I personally do it now? I need to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took.
And would it surprise you to find out that the guy who rented the Cybertruck and blew it up in front of Trump hotels in Las Vegas turned out to be a conservative? What? You're telling me that MAGA land is full of violent psychopaths? Who would have thought? Especially hearing the rhetoric that comes out of Fox News. Because despite the car being absolutely full of fireworks and gasoline, the authorities were able to find a couple cell phones, and there were some notes on those cell phones that I find incredibly interesting. But before we dive into it, make sure to hit the like button if you like the video, and double check that you're subscribed.
Police and the FBI say that Matthew Leibelsberger wrote for about 10 days in that digital journal on his way here from Colorado Springs to the Trump Hotel, where he would eventually die by suicide and set off that car bomb. Those writings include things like saying Americans need to wake up, and they also need to, quote, rally behind President-elect Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And this is all leading the FBI to believe that this was planned and that he wanted to create some sort of big stunt for us all to see, which we now all have. Now, new video we received from police today shows Leibelsberger charging that Tesla that he would eventually explode in Kingman before the bombing. He's charging it there in Kingman. It is just one piece of new evidence, including photos in those writings that investigators found on his phone. Police say this video shows Leibelsberger walking around the car, soon to be full of fireworks and consumer explosives that he bought in New Mexico. Now, writings on that phone include frustration with the military, and one says this, quote, fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, time to wake up. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. The FBI saying there is no known tie right now as to any reason why he chose the Trump Hotel or was driving that Tesla.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious why he would choose a Cybertruck and why he would set it off in front of Trump hotels. The dude was a supporter of both Elon and Trump. And seeing as how the guy who tried to literally assassinate Donald Trump was also a Trump supporter, it's not like these guys are necessarily super geniuses.
Through these interviews, we've found that the subject held no animosity towards the president-elect. That's something that's also been reported. Investigative steps have discovered, and information from the Army indicates, that he likely suffered from PTSD, and we are also aware that there were potential other family issues or personal grievances in his own life that may have been contributing factors. Again, we're looking into all of that.
I mean, check out what his own family said about him. He loved Trump, and he was always a very, very patriotic soldier, a patriotic American. It's one of the reasons he was in the Special Forces for so many years. It wasn't just one tour of duty. This is the guy's uncle, by the way. He also added that the nature of the explosive didn't match what he knew about his nephew. Matt was a very skilled warrior, and he would have been able to make, if it was him, and if he did this, he would have been able to make a more sophisticated explosive than using propane tanks and camping fuel. He was what you might call a super soldier. If you have ever read about the things he was awarded and the experience he had, some of it doesn't make sense. When he had the skills and the ability to make something more, let's say, efficient, his skills were enormous from what he had been taught in the military. This guy's upset that the bomb wasn't more sophisticated. This guy seems to have drank a little too much of the Kool-Aid and thought of himself like he's Frank Castle, the Punisher, slash super soldier, slash Human Torch. I wanted to take a look at what Leibelsberger said himself. Allegedly, this was taken from the cell phone that they found with him in the Cybertruck. Fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, time to wake up. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. Military and vets move on DC starting now. Militias facilitate and augment this activity. Occupy every major road along Fed buildings and the campus of Fed buildings by the hundreds of thousands. Lock the highways around down with semis right after everybody gets in. Hold until the purge is complete. Try peaceful means first, but be prepared to fight to get the Dems out of the Fed government and military by any means necessary. They all must go, and a hard reset must occur for our country to avoid collapse. Okay, so this idiot clearly watches a bit too much Steve Bannon. I'm really glad that the only person who lost their lives was the idiot who wrote this stuff. Because clearly, for all of his training and all of his military service, the dude doesn't know what he's talking about. He lives in this Fox News alternative reality where the Dems are actually secretly plotting to bring down the American people. And then he turns around and supports Donald Trump. I mean, this dude has completely lost the plot. Check this out. We are the United States of America, the best country people to ever exist. I'm assuming that's a typo. But right now, we are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. We are crumbling because a lack of self-respect, morals, and respect for others. Greed and gluttony has consumed us. The top 1% decided long ago they aren't going to bring anyone else with them. You are cattle to them. My guy, you are driving a Cybertruck. You can't complain about the top 1% and then go on to support Elon Musk. He's not even the 1%, he's the top 0.0001%. He's quite literally the richest man on Earth. He goes on. Focus on strength and winning. Masculinity is good and men must be leaders. Okay, so throwing in a little sexism too. Strength is a deterrent and fear is the product. The income inequality in this country and cost of living is outrageous. The number of homeless on our streets is embarrassing and disgusting. Have some pride and take care of this. Stop obsessing over diversity. We are all diverse and DEI is a cancer? I don't know how to explain this to these baby brain people, but DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Programs that are DEI would include homeless people. How in one breath can you say we need to protect homeless people and then go around and say, stop worrying about DEI? Diversity doesn't just mean brown people. Thankfully, we rejected the DEI candidate and will have a real president instead of Weekend at Bernie's. Oh, I wish we had a Weekend at Bernie's, just one weekend. This is not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles and violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with fireworks and explosives? There's a lot of discussion recently, especially with the Luigi Mangione situation, about the definition of this word here, and I don't want to say it because, YouTube doesn't like it. But I think the sticking point is that there has to be some sort of political motivation behind it. And this guy clearly had a political motive. Consider this last sunset of 24, and my actions the end of our sickness and a new chapter of health for our people. Rally around Trump, Musk, Kennedy, and ride this wave to the highest hegemony for all Americans. We are second to no one. So this guy rails against the establishment and blames the Democrats and DEI for the collapse of American society. He complains about the cost of living. He complains about the top 1%. He complains about homeless people, and I'm assuming homeless veterans. And yet he goes on to thank Trump, Musk, and Kennedy. Three of the wealthiest people who have the most power in America and have done absolutely nothing about any of the issues he went on to describe. This is exactly what happens when we allow far-right conservative media to masquerade itself as news and convince these people that the real enemies are immigrants or brown people or people who want to stand up for the marginalized instead of these rich assholes that have taken over the United States government and aren't even hiding the fact anymore. I truly do hope that this is a wake-up call, not for the American people, but for the Trump supporters who haven't realized that they've been had. I'm Tony Hinderman for Really American. I'll see you next time.